In our first show from Snetterton, we brought you all of the action from the overall results, as well as a brief look into the class winners. In this coverage, we're going to be delving a little bit deeper into those class battles here at round 2. Straight to the morning stages then, and a look at the E2 class. This does give us a reminder of the overall results at this stage, with Reece Yates and James Morgan leading that class at the top of the results. Second in that class and overall would be Frank Bird and Jack Morton, out in the Fiesta R5 for the first time, on loan from M Sport as a test while the Focus was having a little bit of work done. Third in that class, as well as overall, were Mark Kelly and Neil Coleman. They were a little cautious on the gravel sections due to still getting used to the car, but the pace was still excellent. The GT class would only have one crew, being Chris West and Keith Hounslow, bringing out the Porsche to try and take the challenge to the four-wheel drive cars. They would struggle, however, with the gravel sections, of course. They end the morning with 8th place overall.
In Class D then, it will be David Henderson and Chris Williams leading the way. Only the third rally back in the seat for David after a long 20-year break from competing, so to be leading the class was certainly a good start. Second place in that class was this man, Martin Hodgson, Tony Jones alongside, of course. They were just over a minute back as they reached the midway point of the rally, so they'd have to push in the afternoon to try and take the challenge to our class leaders. For Ciro Carinanti and Simon Coates, it would be third in Class D for now. Finally, seeming to get the overheating problems with the car sorted, allowing them a clean run, 19 seconds back from Hodgson. Nick and Sally Wales will be a further 24 seconds back, fourth in class at this stage, 26th place on our overall leaderboard as well. And it will be a little closer, the gap to Alistair Staples and Neil Jones. They're in fifth as they end the morning, just 8 seconds back from Wales in the class.
In Class C, it would be the lead for Josh Payton and Jamie Vaughan. This was the first time at Snetterton for Josh, so they were certainly pleased to find themselves leading the class over the morning stages, and up to 13th place overall too. Second in Class C at this stage would be Anthony Allery and Dan Tribe. They were a few places back on the overall results from the class leaders, in 26th overall. For Robin Adams and Ray Keith, it would be third in the class after stage 4, another minute back on the times as well. The gap's looking a little bit bigger in this class. And indeed, it would be a similar story for Lee Earthy and Emma Hewitt. Not quite as big a gap though for the pair, who take 4th in Class C this morning. And for Martin Ellis and Clive Leatherby, it would be 5th in the class. The time's a lot closer here, with just 17 seconds to Earthy up ahead. Sadly, Class C would lose a few crews, the first of those being Oliver Hunter and Mark Holmes. They retire in stage 3 when the clutch went. They'd been 4th in the class up to that point and were also enjoying the event. We would also lose Rob Clark and Brett Griffin. This was only the 3rd event in the car, having spent 8 years building it completely from scratch in the garage. They'd been up to 5th in class on the first stage of the day, but a mistake on a hairpin on stage 2 would drop them some time. Ultimately though, it would be a misfire on the 3rd stage that would lead to suspected head gasket failure, and unfortunately the pair would call it a day. Still going in Class C with a father and son pairing of Mark Sands and Jason Walker. Only the 4th event for the driver and 3rd for the navigator. The car was running faultlessly. Sadly, however, the same couldn't be said about the crew, who were struggling to get to grips with the hairpins at the end of the stage. Other than that, however, it was going very well indeed.
The E1 class splits the more standard 4-wheel drive cars from the front-running R5 and WRC machinery, and it would be Stuart Cadman and Mike Withers reaching the midway point of the rally with the lead of the class in their older Evo. The times at the top of this class, though, were very close. Just 1 second between the top 2 crews, Ryan Moan and Freddie Hewitt taking that 2nd place. But they'd led in the earlier stages, and the times were swapping as the morning went on. For Greg Williams and Richard Edwards, it would be 3rd in the class. A new gearbox had been fitted to the car after they lost a few gears at Donington. They'd found them here at Snetterton, they'd upgraded from a 5-speed to a 6-speed, and it was going well. And rounding out the E1 class now with William and Stuart Moore, a good way back from those up ahead, but they were still going and ready for a big push.
In Class B, it would be Chris Ruck and Steve Harris who take the early lead. They open up a good advantage in that place over the morning stages. Their lead would be over Mark Peterson and Jim Bowie, 47 seconds back from rough. Their first time driving this car was on the way to the first stage this morning, so it was a very good start to the event for the pair with such limited seat time. So good to see the MG ZR back out of Dale and Andrew Lawson, 13 seconds back from Peterson and a minute off the lead, third in their class. It would be the first time at Snetterton for Lewis Gart and Callum Young, so understandably they spent the first two stages just getting themselves settled in. It was going really, really well though, and the pair could push on the next stages to take fourth in the class by this point, 9 seconds back from Lawson. And just 10 seconds back from them in the class were Alex Cannon and Alan Carfrae, 5th in Class B for the pair and 47th place overall for now in their Fiesta.
We're on to the historic class now, and it would be the battle of the Mark I Escorts. The lead of the class going to Aaron Ricks and Rob Cook at this stage in their ever sideways Escort. We love to see that. For Chris Gill and Simon Jones, it would be second in the class, and they were clearly trying, as you can see, catching the rear of the car on the exit of the gravel section. But frustratingly for the pair, despite pushing hard and entertaining us, worse was to come. They reached the end of stage 4 with that rear wheel pointing, well, in a direction it shouldn't really be. Second in the class, but they wouldn't be going much further. So for Terry Pankhurst and Jamie Sparks, it would be third in the class. They wouldn't know it yet, but that would change in the afternoon. It was looking almost certain that they would inherit second.
In Class A, it would be the lead for Christopher and Anthony Newton. A slow puncture in the opening stage had actually put them in second place for a little while and playing catch-up. They did have some new Proflex on the car for this round and were trying to get used to the new setup. Seemed to be going really well though, with a little help from championship sponsors CSG Motorsport too. So that class lead hadn't been the case from the start for Team Newton. The lead had previously been held by Cassie Nicklin and Darren Scales. They were going really well, but unfortunately would retire later on in the morning stages. The various changes would mean that Barry and Oliver Marshall would step up to second place now. They were loving the event, but were glad to see the gravel sections cut from the middle of the stage, as that wasn't as enjoyable for them. I love stories like this. For Brett and Andrew Murray, it would be third place in Class A. The pair had actually marshalled on this very event a year earlier, and it was that which made them buy a competition car. They'd spent most of lockdown getting it sorted and managed to get out last season, but they were loving being back where they got the rallying bug, and lying in a great position in that class was even better. Fourth in the class at the midpoint in the event were Laura and Duncan Christmas, the mini pair rounding out the class runners now in 76th place overall.
There was a bit of a disaster for Paul Gorge and Daniel Hurst in the MX5 class, which would take an early shake-up. They don't make it out of the opening stage. We also lose Nigel and Catherine Brain when they get as far as stage 2 before being forced to stop. All that attrition left Steve Dolman and Adam Houston leading the way in the MX5 class, and sadly now the only ones remaining in what should have been and is normally a hard-fought class. So they were going to have to take the fight on the overall leaderboard. So as we reach the midpoint of the rally, here's a little reminder of how those class battles are going. 4 more stages lie ahead of the crews this afternoon with some close battles out there. That does of course mean there are still plenty of stage miles to change those results around.
On to the afternoon stages then, and it would of course be no change for the MX5 class, as Steve Dolman and Adam Houston are the only finishers there in 43rd place overall. Class A would see a little change, but not for 4th place. Laura and Duncan Christmas ending the event with the place that they had held all morning in the Mini. There would be change, however, for Barry and Oliver Marshall. They dropped down a place in the class to 3rd, but they enjoyed the event and were very happy with the result this weekend. So that change means there is a step up to 2nd place in Class A for Brett and Andrew Murray. It had all been a little bit last minute before the event, having to run a standard gearbox and clutch in order to make the start, so there would certainly be no complaints for them for a 2nd place finish. So that of course means it's a class win for Chris and Anthony Newton. They got the setup just right and managed to pull away from the rest of the class as the day went on, gaining some good points for the Pro Tyre Championship as well in the process. Looking good heading into the next round at Ulm Park.
This weekend would be the first stage rally for Brian and Jack Cherritt. Brian had wanted to compete in a stage rally since the age of 7, haven't we all? 40 years later, he has got his wish. The pair had been doing Targa rallies up until now, and we're loving the switch to the special stages here at Snetterton. They end the rally 8th in Class B, 50th overall. There wouldn't be any change in 5th place in the class. Alex Cannon and Alan Carfray continue to hold that position to the finish in the Fiesta. Unfortunately for Dale and Andrew Lawson, they slipped down a position in the afternoon to end the rally with 4th in the class, missing out on that 3rd place by just 5 seconds. And it would be Lewis Gatt and Callum Young stepping up to take that position. They put in some good stage times, including a fastest time in the class on stage 6, to put them just 1 second behind 3rd going into the final stage. A push in there would see them take that 3rd place by 5 seconds. All of this and yet no change at the top of the class. Mark Peterson and Jim Bowie ending the event in 2nd place. A fantastic finish for their debut in the Peugeot. And all of that, of course, means that it's victory here for Chris Rook and Steve Harris. The Corsa pair pushing the car hard on the stages, taking victory by around a minute by the finish of the event.
In the E1 class, it would be William and Stuart Moore rounding out the finishes with 4th place in that class in the Evo. For Greg Williams and Richard Edwards, it would be 3rd in the class. They only had one minor issue when they knocked a spotlight off in the morning, but aside from that, it all went to plan. The pair now lead the class in the championship going into round 3. There would be change at the top of the E1 class. Stuart Cadman and Mike Withers couldn't quite manage to keep hold of that lead that had been changing hands throughout the day. They miss out on the class win by just 12 seconds. And of course, that means the win for Ryan Munn and Freddie Hewitt. This was the first time that Freddie had navigated for Ryan. Both really glad to be back out competing after the enforced break, and to come away with the class win was just a bonus.
As expected then here in Class H, it would be a step up to 2nd in the class for Terry Pankhurst and Jamie Sparks. That loss of Chris Gill, of course, leaving a gap in this class leaderboard. They'd have a little moment in one of the afternoon stages though when they clip the tyres and carry a cone a little way with them in the stage. But apart from a little damage to the front of the car, things were all good for that 2nd in class finish. And that means it would be the win in the class for Aaron Ricks and Rob Cook, giving us some entertainment on the penultimate stage of the day with a bit of a donut, even if it wasn't a styled out spin. It's okay, we won't tell anyone. They end the rally 23rd place overall with the Class H win.
In Class C, things were certainly going to plan for Mark Sands and Jason Walker. On the event at least. They do have a problem on the way home when the wheel bearing on the trailer broke, meaning that they had to tax the rally car by the side of the road and drive it the 90 miles home. Good job they finished in one piece then, really. They end the event with 12th place in Class C. We see some changes in Class C, with Jack Tilburn and Jodie Wilson moving up to take 5th place in the class. Jack, of course, usually seen on the other side of the car navigating, but this weekend was doing a sterling job on the steering. Going well, ending the event in 5th in class. For Martin Ellis and Clive Leatherby, it would be a step up to 4th in class. They would be happy with that finish, gaining an extra place in the afternoon stages and ending the event 36th place overall as well. It would be the same story too for Lee Earthy and Emma Hewitt. 3rd in the class for them at the finish, stepping up from that 4th place they held this morning. The reason for the changes then would be the loss of Anthony Allery and Dan Tribe, which of course also means that Robin Adams and Ray Keith would gain a place too, making it up to 2nd place in the class at the finish. But there would be no change to the lead, one that never seemed to be in doubt for Josh Payne and Jamie Vaughan. A trouble-free day without any problems, something I'm sure they would of course love to repeat at the next round at Alton Park.
Despite being our trailblazers in the GT class, Chris West and Keith Hounslow were still trying, looking for an overall result more than anything. Unfortunately for them, a puncture would drop them down the times. How good it would have been to see them further up this leaderboard, but they do make it back up as far as 9th place overall. In Class D, we'd lose Alistair Stables and Neil Jones close to the end of the rally. That means that Phil Jobson and Ken Bills take 5th in that class through the afternoon stages. That, though, would be about the only change in the class. Nick and Sally Whale continuing to hold on to 4th place in the class throughout the day. Don't let the lack of change in the results fool you into thinking that this class did not hold some excitement. Look at the entertainment here. Tiro Carinanti and Simon Coates getting the Porsche to the finish to take 3rd in the class. A good finish for the pair this weekend. But there would be no challenging for the win for Martin Hodgson and Tony Jones, despite giving it all they had. They had to settle for 2nd in the class. They weren't going to be disappointed with that at all, though. A great finish for the Escort pair, and it is early days. But that all means that it's the class victory for David Henson and Chris Williams. Fastest of our 2-wheel drive crews at the finish as well. Not bad for being so long out of the seat. Next up, the pair will be heading to Alton Park for the next round of the championship. And with that circuit being a favourite for David, they'd be expecting another good result.
In the E2 class, it would be a good weekend for Gary Russell and Fiona Scarrett. A complete novice and starting right at the back of the entry to get to the finish in 52nd place overall in the Evo. Neil and Daniel Roskell improving on their seeding to end the day in 19th place overall. They enjoyed the stages but found that the dust on the gravel sections to be a little bit tricky. That's all part of rallying though, the pair taking 14th in the massively popular E2 class this weekend. And of course that class would reflect the top of the event overall, so let's remind ourselves of how that battle ended, with Mark Kelly and Neil Coleman ending the event with 3rd place overall and in the class in the older spec Fiesta R5. Sadly, there wouldn't be a repeat for the win from round 1 for Frank Bird and Jack Morton. They'd been pushed all day long and had gone really well in a new car, never more than a few seconds from the leaders, and setting a few faster stage times on their way to 2nd place overall. That, of course, means it's the win for Rhys Yates and James Morgan. Victory by just 14 seconds at the end of what had been a really enjoyable but competitive event. A really good boost of confidence for the pair before heading to Alton Park in a few weeks' time.
So that's it from round 2 of the Motorsport News Circuit Rally Championship here at Snetterton in Norfolk. A reminder on your screens now of the final class results, and just enough time to remind you that the championship heads to Alton Park next at the end of May for round 3. We'll be live throughout the rally on the championship Facebook page. Sam will be there. Make sure you are as well. We'll also have plenty of coverage for you in the week after the rally. Thank you for watching. We'll see you at Alton Park.